with the Chair Monday Night Live show. With me tonight, I have Elizabeth Aniol. She's a travel agent, a YouTube content creator, a blogger, and a veteran traveler. She operates a home-based travel agency and specializes in the Caribbean. Elizabeth Ann, I am glad to have you on the show.
Yep, it's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're quite welcome. So, the reason I put the title together for this one is it seems like there's been just a lot of negative information on the news in both YouTube and in the mainline news online about challenges on the cruise ships lately.
Right. Yeah, I've read a lot, I've heard a lot, I've seen a lot. So, yeah, it's one of those things you feel for the passengers, you understand why they feel a certain way and so forth. I know one of the terms that have been going around is the bait and switch, especially with the one, the Norwegian Spirit that was recently out to sea. Things happen when you're out. It's beyond their control, and their main thing that they have to worry about is the safety of the passengers, the safety of the crew, the safety of the ship, and they also have to worry about everybody at the port too. So
and you're right about that. And it's interesting too, because on the news there was that incident with the river cruise liner in Ukrainian where the Princess Isabella, they collided with a cargo ship and damaged the ship pretty significantly. Yet there were just two people injured and they did take them to the hospital. I hadn't been able to find any results on how they fared. Yeah. So I know you like to cruise. Do these things raise any question or cause any discomfort in your mind about taking cruises?
I would say I've been on enough of them that I wouldn't question it. In fact, I do have another cruise that we have booked for February. It's not something that it comes to mind as far as the safety, because I've been on enough. I trust what they're doing. In fact, most cruise lines do that little initial evacuation, in case this happens, this is your route and so forth. So I've always felt like they've prepared me enough once I got on the ship that if for some reason something did happen, I would be okay.
Yeah, and I'm very much the same way. I just got off of a cruise. We were on the Jewel in Alaska through the the early part of June. I booked the Norwegian Sun for a group cruise to Alaska in September of next year, and I'm just waiting for the prices to get right for a January, February cruise.
Yeah.
We were in January. We went on the breakaway out of New Orleans down to the Caribbean, and it's interesting because I think that a lot of people, and I heard the term bait and switch used.
Right.
And one of the things that people don't realize is that actually costs the cruise line a lot of money for them to have to change. They have everything set up to go to one port. Now they've got to get things set up and ready to go to another port. If they have to sail a little bit of extra distance, that's money. And then they lose all the revenue from the shore excursions that they had to cancel.
Right. Well, and I think too, also, I know like cruising, we've done more of our cruising down in the Caribbean. And I know the islands down there really anticipate those cruises coming into town. That's their number one, 100%, whatever, tourism is their revenue base down there. So they need those cruise ships to come in. So I think like even with the bait and switch thing, if that was going on and that's what they truly are doing, those people are not going to want them to come. They're not going to be planning them to come in for them not to come in.
Yeah. And that's exactly right. And it's kind of interesting, the perspective, because I was on, and it's funny because it was the Spirit as well. I was on her first sailing when she came back. She had been in Asia in the Japanese, Chinese market. And at the time, the ship that now is the Pride of America was being built. It sank in the dry dock in Germany. And we had a cruise booked on that ship. So what they had to do is they had to shuffle ships around this. We sometimes things happen on live shows. It was kind of interesting because on that sailing we had a few glitches. First of all, a lot of the signs were still in Japanese, Chinese, whatever it was. I don't read the characters well enough to know. And then going into Juneau, we were late into Juneau because they didn't have the gray water permit, so they had to go actually get outside the 12-mile boundary to dump gray water and then come back in. And my wife and I were standing downstairs in the atrium, and this lady was berating the people that were behind the desk, saying this was the worst experience of her life. And she just went on and on. And my wife and I looked at each other and said, we want her life. Because for us, we were having a great time. It was a nice ship. I mean, yeah, we were late into port by a couple of hours on one port on one day. And that was the worst experience of this lady's life. And it's amazing how people overreact to something that, there's really no reason to get that way about.
Right. And I know we had booked a back-to-back cruise. We did Carnival this year in 2017, and we did the same ship, same cabin. The first part of our cruise, we had docked in Cozumel, and there was an issue with the ferry boat. Somebody said that there was a bomb or something. I don't remember exactly what happened exactly, but it was one of the things we ended up staying at the dock for an extra 3 hours after, because they had to safely ferry all these people on like 2 ships back and forth for, I think, 4 cruise ships that were there. So they really, safety on that day was really good. But we ended up leaving late. We got to our next stop a little bit late the next day, but they made up. They gave us a couple extra hours at the next stop. And then our second part of the cruise, when we were in Puerto Rico, we had left the out of the port and we lost our anchor. So we sat there for another 3 hours, just going back and forth between the port to try to find out where this anchor was. We had to wait and find out if they could even find it, which then again, we got late the next day to our port. But you know what? They made up for it again. So I really think, they try their best to make their cruisers happy, and they do what they can. Sometimes it's completely out of their control, and nothing that they do is going to change it, but they try their best to make everybody happy.
Well, yeah, and that was exactly what they did. And in fact, on the Spirit, they gave us a 25% credit for our next cruise. And we were like, for 2 hours late into port, that was a whale of a bargain.
Right. Yeah, you appreciate those type of things. Yeah,
we do. And the one thing that all of this called to mind is I think back to last year, and they had that Viking ship that was up in somewhere in the North Sea and lost an engine and almost wound up on the rocks, and they had to evacuate those people. I'm thinking that those passengers that had to get off that ship in 10 and 15 foot seas wished the captain had found smoother water to sail it. And so the captain's first concern is always the safety and the comfort of the passengers.
Right.
And if it means missing a port, I can remember one of the times we were anchored between Cancun and Isla de Mujeres in there. And the ship we were on was one of the smaller Norwegian ships. I think it might have been the Wind. And what happened was the captain said where we were anchored, there was 6 feet of water under the hull. So the bottom of the ship was 6 foot off the bottom. So if there'd been 6 foot seas, we'd have been going boom, boom, boom on the bottom.
Right.
So what the captain can do entirely depends on what the weather's doing. It's
exactly.
Not like, it was interesting. I did find this piece in Forbes magazine. It said that the odds of dying on a cruise ship is 1 in 6.25 million. And that is the only thing that is safer is flying. You're more likely to die from tornadoes, lightning, walking,
Car
riding in a
accidents.
car, a train. Any of those things are much
Right.
more dangerous than riding on a cruise ship, taking your cruise.
Right.
And I just think that it's a shame that people take something like that and they just blow it completely out of proportion. It was,
Right.
it was a small incident, but again, the newspapers and the news media are all hungry for headlines. So, cruise ship riot makes a great headline.
Right. Right. Yeah, that gets the most readers on that one.
Yeah.
So.
It is very shame. It's a shame that it turns out that way. I don't see any questions. I was hoping we'd have some audience questions, but I don't see any. I appreciate you being on, Elizabeth Ann. What I'll do is I'm going to put on a link to your YouTube page. Will be in the comments. I'm going to, for those that are listening, either on the broadcast or on the replay, I have a 5-page travel checklist that's designed for people that are traveling. It covers both international and domestic travel. And I'll tell you that if you go through the checklist and follow the suggestions, you're going to find that it's really quite interesting. And we do have a comment here. So Linda Arnold said, we were in Tropical Storm Nicole in 2011. Actually, I'll bring it up there. And we missed out 2 of the 3 ports. Yeah. What could I expect? I went during hurricane season. It's just a chance you take. And the interesting thing, and I just want to circle back to what happened on the Spirit, is that was basically the aftermath of that huge hurricane that stayed way east in the Atlantic, and it basically went due north and hit Ireland and England and Scotland, and just made a huge mess in that area. And there's not much you can do if you go in hurricane season. And while normally speaking, Europe is a safe place to be, in this particular case, the weather made it not so much so. That's why I go to Alaska in the summertime and I go south in the winter. The only problem is last year I went, I sailed out of New Orleans in January, and we got to the Caribbean and it was just too cold to get in the water. It was like 60-degree days, and you're like,
that's not what you want. But stuff happens. So
I don't know what happened. I lost my audio with you. Anyway, I appreciate the comment, Linda. Thanks to all of you that are watching. Like I said, if you're watching on the replay, please put some comments in. What we'll do is Elizabeth Ann and I will make sure that the comments get answered so that you can have information that's useful to you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Okay.